Greetings, friends. You're watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and this is our daily breakdown of the situation on the Ukrainian front. Today we'll take a detailed look at the events in Ukraine as of October 4th, 2025. A great number of significant developments have taken place, so let's get right into it. We begin with the northern and northeastern regions of Ukraine, where the Russian Federation has been conducting massive strikes for several consecutive days against energy infrastructure targets in the Chernihiv and Sumy regions. In the footage presented here, according to the author of the video, you can see another strike on an energy facility. At this moment, reports indicate that a large number of towns and villages, including Konotop and Shostka, as well as surrounding settlements, have been left without electricity. Here, for instance, are images from the area of Shostka, showing workers attempting to restore power lines. However, these same lines are coming under renewed attack, this time using Jaran-type drones. All of this suggests that Russia's objective is to deprive nearly the entire north and northeast of Ukraine of electrical power. Footage has also surfaced from Chernihiv. These videos first appeared overnight between October 3rd and 4th, but additional material continues to come in. Judging by it, the fire in one of the city's districts still hasn't been extinguished. This is quite telling. Let me remind you that Russia began striking Ukraine's energy infrastructure back in 2022. At that time, these attacks seemed to serve mainly as a means of pressure, a way to push Kyiv toward negotiations. But now the tactics are clearly different. The strikes are concentrated specifically on northern and northeastern areas. It appears that Russia's goal is to cause a complete power outage across this region, effectively creating a localized blackout that covers all of Chernihiv region and the northern part of Sumy region. The question arises, why would Moscow do this? One likely reason is to reduce the frequency of drone and possibly missile attacks launched toward Moscow from this direction. But viewed more broadly, a blackout in northern Ukraine during the autumn and winter period would inevitably lead to mass civilian evacuations. It's impossible to live through the winter without light and heat, meaning people will be forced to leave their homes. As a result, these territories will empty out, leaving only Ukrainian military units behind. For Russia, that could become a key advantage in any potential advance toward Kyiv, since resistance on depopulated ground would be far weaker. Now let's move to the Zaporizhzhia sector, where the Vostok grouping continues its offensive toward the fortified areas of Poltavka and Uspenivka. Over the past 24 hours, Russian units have made new advances. On maps dated October 3rd, Russian forces were already close to these strongholds. But by now, the distance has shrunk even further. At present, Russian positions lie less than 800 meters from the outskirts of Poltavka and about 650 meters from Uspenivka. The Russian army is advancing, carefully trying to minimize losses. There are no clear signs of a full-scale assault yet, but everything indicates that the active phase could begin very soon. According to both neutral and pro-Western sources, Russian troops have also reached the outskirts of Vyshnev, where, according to several cartographers, fighting is underway for the eastern edge of the settlement. Interestingly, Ukrainian sources recently released the opposite claim, saying that their forces carried out several counterattacks and regained control of 3 or even 4 settlements, including the western part of Verbov and the areas of Novoselivka and Yanvarske. However, there is still no visual confirmation of this information through objective control footage. Nonetheless, one thing is clear, extremely heavy fighting continues on this sector of the front. The Russian army is methodically moving forward. As we noted earlier, the outcome of the entire Zaporizhzhia campaign will largely depend on what happens along the Vyshnev-Uspenivka-Poltavka line. This is Ukraine's key defensive barrier, and the results of the battles here will likely determine the further course of the campaign all the way to the town of Orikhiv. Moving on to the Novopavlivka direction, a number of important reports have arrived from there as well. Ukrainian sources have published footage showing FPV drone strikes on Russian positions in the area of Ivanivka. Several episodes are visible, and 3 specific buildings have been geolocated as confirmed targets of these attacks. This video evidence supports earlier reports that the Russian army successfully crossed the Volchya River and established positions in Ivanivka. Fierce fighting for this settlement continues. It is a critical stronghold, If Russian troops manage to capture it, the last remaining supply route to Novopavlivka will fall under their control. The Ukrainian army continues to rely on the T-0428 highway, but its bridges were destroyed by Russian airstrikes. It's likely that Ukrainian engineers have set up temporary pontoon crossings, but full-scale logistics have not been restored. Now we turn to the Pokrovsk sector, where the situation has also shifted noticeably. Over the past 48 hours, multiple analysts, including pro-Russian ones, have pointed out significant improvements in Russian positions in the western, southwestern, and southern parts of the city of Pokrovsk. Comparing the maps reveals how the front has changed. On October 2nd, Russian units controlled only the southwestern portion of the Pokrovsk urban area. But by October 3rd, reports indicated further advances along the railway, from the settlement of Kotlin to the western outskirts of Pokrovsk. These developments suggest that Russian forces are gradually seizing the initiative and strengthening their foothold near the city. The coming days could therefore prove decisive for this entire direction. In the western part of Pokrovsk, primarily within the private housing sector, Russian units are slowly encircling the industrial zone located in the northern part of the city beyond the railway. This area serves as a key defensive stronghold for the Ukrainian army. Should Ukraine lose control over it, the entire Pokrovsk defensive line would effectively collapse. Nevertheless, fighting there continues, and the situation remains extremely tense. Furthermore, new information emerged yesterday that Russian troops have partially encircled 3 major residential districts in the city's southeast: Lazurny, Shakhtarsky, and Solnechny. Reports from the ground indicate that Ukrainian defenders in these areas face increasingly dire conditions. Supply lines are broken, logistics are disrupted, and withdrawal routes are under threat. Today, several reputable pro-Russian analysts confirmed that the Lazurny neighborhood and parts of Shakhtarsky are now under Russian control. Based on the footage and analytical reports, it can be concluded that Pokrovsk's southern defenses have largely collapsed. This still awaits official verification, but mounting evidence suggests that Ukraine's defensive line here is disintegrating. Advancing further southeast, fierce clashes continue in the Novoshaktov area. Russian sources released videos showing FPV drone strikes on Ukrainian armored vehicles. One drone hit a Ukrainian tank retreating, presumably after a battle, toward Novoshaktov and then in the direction of Dobropilya. These materials clarify the situation near Novoshaktov, where combat is ongoing. Ukrainian sources earlier claimed to have retaken the settlement, but the new footage and independent analyses suggest otherwise. The fighting there swings back and forth. Neither side has managed to secure lasting control. Next, we move to the Siversk sector, where critical confirmations have emerged. This morning, footage appeared from the settlement of Fedorivka, which the Russian Ministry of Defense had already reported as fully cleared of Ukrainian forces 3 or 4 weeks ago. Until now, however, no video proof had been presented. And now, on October 4th, pro-Russian sources have published videos showing Russian soldiers raising their national flag in several parts of Fedorivka. 4 flags in total, placed in the south, west, and north of the village. These images provide sufficient grounds to assert that the settlement is indeed under complete Russian control, with final mopping-up operations likely completed only recently. This opens the way for Russian units to move northward towards Sviatopokrovska and Ry-Oleksandrivka. It also enables a flanking maneuver from the west to approach Siversk and cut off Ukraine's main logistical routes from the southwest. Thus, the city of Siversk is gradually being taken in a pincer movement. All supply roads are now under Russian artillery and FPV drone fire control. There are also reports of increased activity by foreign contingents fighting on the Ukrainian side. All of this points to the likelihood that the final and fiercest stage of the battle for Siversk could begin before the end of 2025. Finally, we turn to the Lyman direction, where minor but notable adjustments have appeared on the map. Comparing yesterday's and today's data, it is evident that Russian forces have advanced close to the settlement of Stavky, the last defensive line north of Lyman. Should Stavky fall, Russian troops, as in the case of the nearby settlement of Zarekne, will gain a direct opportunity to strike the city itself. Meanwhile, Western analysts have recorded a sharp drop in the effectiveness of Ukraine's air defense systems. particularly the long-range Patriot batteries. The reasons for this are partly obvious. Frequent Russian strikes have destroyed or damaged several Patriot units. But in addition to that, there is growing evidence that Russia has begun deploying upgraded long-range missile variants. So what exactly is happening? The British outlet Financial Times reports that Western-supplied air defense systems are becoming less and less effective on Ukrainian territory. The publication states that in September, Ukraine's interception rate of ballistic missiles dropped sharply, from 37% down to just 6%. The article cites data from the Ukrainian Air Force, compiled by analysts from the London-based Centre for Information Resilience. There are at least three main reasons for this decline in effectiveness. The first is the shortage of air defense systems themselves, especially the most capable ones, the Patriot batteries. These systems were originally intended to intercept Russian Kinzhal and Iskander missiles. We need 25 Patriot systems to fully protect the skies over Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky said back in 2024. However, in May of this year, the New York Times reported that the Ukrainian armed forces currently possess only 8 Patriot batteries, 6 of which are operational, while 2 are undergoing repairs. Given the intensity of Russian long-range strikes on military targets, this number is clearly insufficient. To make matters worse, Russia periodically destroys these systems. For instance, on September 25th, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the destruction of a Patriot launcher, a command and control cabin, and a radar system. The second major issue lies not only in the number of launchers, but also in the shortage of interceptor missiles for them. We have nothing left to shoot down the missiles, Zelensky complained as early as February. Air defense historian and military expert Yuri Knutov explained that Lockheed Martin, the manufacturer of Patriot missiles, can produce up to 600 interceptors per year. Yet one Patriot salvo consumes at least 10 missiles at a time. If you take into account that Patriot systems are deployed in 18 countries worldwide, it becomes clear that everyone needs these missiles. This explains the shortage of ammunition for Ukraine. Consumption is enormous, Knutov said. There have even been reports that US stockpiles of Patriot missiles have dropped to about 25% of the necessary level. Still, these logistical and technical problems are nothing new for Ukraine's air defenses. They've been evident for quite some time. What's new, according to Western media, is a change in the behavior of Russian long-range missiles. The Financial Times claims that Russian missiles have recently begun evading American interceptors in the final seconds of flight. This, it says, is likely the key third reason behind the drastic drop in interception rates. In classic terms, ballistic missiles do not maneuver near the end of their trajectory, which makes their path predictable for air defense computers. As Yuri Knutov explained, by knowing the launch coordinates, speed, and angle of trajectory, the Patriot's fire control system calculates the precise point in space where the interceptor can meet the incoming missile. However, if the missile follows a quasi-ballistic trajectory, like the Russian Kinzhal, it becomes far harder to predict. Such missiles can change their position in space at hypersonic speeds along an unpredictable path, which makes interception nearly impossible and allows them to reliably hit their targets. There is not a single confirmed case of a Kinzhal ever being shot down, noted military expert Dmitry Drozdenko. The Iskander missiles present a more complex case. Their flight path combines both ballistic and aerodynamic components. The ballistic segment provides range, while the aerodynamic one enables maneuvering, though at the cost of some speed. Because of this, the Patriot theoretically still has a chance to intercept an Iskander. As they approach, the system calculates a trajectory to meet the missile in mid-air and destroy it, Drozdenko explained. Some Patriot interceptors work on a proximity detonation principle. They explode near the target missile, though these are slower and less effective. Others rely on a kinetic kill method, requiring a direct collision to destroy the target. The latter are faster, fly farther, and are more precise. They also perform maneuvers, with their flight path controlled by onboard software. In simple terms, it's now a contest between the Patriot's guidance program and the Iskander's control algorithm, Drozdenko said. According to the expert, in recent months, Russian missile programmers have managed to outpace their counterparts at Lockheed Martin. Patriot interceptors can no longer keep up with Iskanders, and that, he believes, is the main reason behind the sharp drop in Ukraine's air defense performance. This is the eternal duel between the shield and the sword. HIMARS launchers were once highly effective, but Russian forces eventually learned how to shoot them down. Even though they too perform evasive maneuvers, Drozdenko added. In addition, Iskander missiles are now equipped with sensors that detect radar emissions from Patriot guidance systems. The missiles can see those radar stations and avoid their engagement zones, clarified Yuri Knutov. It is possible that Lockheed Martin engineers are now working on countermeasures to the improved capabilities of Iskanders, refining the software of their interceptor missiles. Yet according to many experts, in the race of missile control algorithms, Russia currently holds the lead. Of course, this advantage does not mean a complete shift in the overall balance of power. For 4 years we've been systematically destroying Ukraine's defense industry, its refineries and energy infrastructure. But the West continues to provide steady support, supplying weapons, fuel and electricity, said Vladimir Prokvatilov, senior researcher at the Academy of Military Sciences. As for Ukraine's air defense, a new batch of Patriot systems is reportedly expected soon. Nevertheless, it's already clear that Russia has taken a significant step forward in improving the effectiveness of its deep strike operations against military targets inside Ukrainian territory. That concludes today's report. Thank you, friends, for watching the channel, supporting the project, leaving your likes and subscribing. See you soon, and all the best until our next analysis.